It's a topic I've been wanting to discuss for a while. The topic kind of came before I thought I was ready, but something happened a week and a half ago that I don't know if you all saw it, but we're going to talk about it today. We will center around this recent viral incident involving Cloudflare's employee layoffs. Did y'all see this video with the young Brittany Peach that was going around? There was a moment that captured the attention of all professionals, or it should have captured your attention worldwide. It sparked a conversation about the power of digital or recorded evidence in holding your leaders accountable. We're in an era where almost everyone carries a camera in their pocket, a phone recording device in their hands, and they're capturing incidents of toxic leadership, including belittling remarks, microaggressions, bias, and all of these other things like foul terminations, right? These unexpected terminations where people feel as if there's gaslighting happening. Someone saying, "Hey, it's your performance," and maybe it's actually something else why you're being laid off. And that's what Brittany thought when she was recording her termination. Your companies are being exposed. So if you are a business owner, a company owner, or you're an executive in an organization, or maybe even a partner in professional services, right? You own the company, even though it might be 150,000 of y'all, but y'all all own it, right? Equity or non-equity partners. Younger millennials, probably under the age of 32, and our Generation X, which is under the age of 27. So they're in college, they're young, emerging professionals. They do believe in recording, and the incidence of recording conversations and workplace conversations can increase, especially in a hybrid environment. So in the Cloudflare video, the young woman had heard before she got her invitation to join a video meeting that some other folks had been terminated. So the word was making rounds because this young generation, they're going to share their compensation, they're going to share their experiences, and they're going to give you a heads up. Because I remember back in the day when I worked and we did a large layoff. I was at Deloitte, they did a large layoff. And I didn't find out that people were let go until either they were gone or someone stopped by my office to say farewell. But now they're giving each other a heads up, right? They're letting them know. So Brittany was expecting this phone call. She got the Zoom invitation. She knew what it was about, but she didn't think like, why would they terminate me? And so in this call that she had, she works for a company called Cloudflare. And so Brittany gets on this call, and there's something that I thought was really interesting. A few things that I want to point out. The first one is she didn't even know who these people are. So the first thing is like, who are you? So if you're going to be terminated from your organization, and this is my advice to these companies, make sure that the people who are involved in leading and managing the staff, that they're part of the conversation, because there's this sense of violation. She felt, I don't know you. Who are you? Why are you here? Where's my director and where's my manager? And she even went a step further in the video of saying, my manager and my director is not even aware that this is happening. So that was the first thing that stood out to me is she felt blindsided, but not only was she blindsided, she was like, who the heck are y'all? Which I think is a fair question to ask. The next thing that occurred in the conversation is that they told her that she was being terminated because of her performance. And she immediately responded with, what are you talking about? My manager has routinely told me that I'm doing a great job, that he is impressed with how fast I'm learning this role. And she went on to list some other things that he said. And so the feedback that she got may have been informal. And I've said over and over on the UnToxic Boss that your feedback needs to be clear, it needs to be specific, it needs to be actionable, and it needs to be documented. So what Brittany was responding to was that she was getting a lot of informal feedback. She was getting celebratory feedback. And celebration and celebrating people is not feedback. It is not what we should be looking at and leaning toward solely to identify any performance improvement that we need to make. And as managers, we need to be careful with telling people, girl, you're doing a good job, like giving those high fives and not documenting what we're saying, because that opens us up to a lawsuit, and it creates what, in this case with Whitney, what it created for her was, you're telling me that I'm being terminated for performance, but I have evidence. I can tell you what I was told about how good I'm doing. So that was the other thing that stood out to me. So she felt like she was being like gaslighting was happening. And it's unfortunate it was like third party gaslighting. So we have to be really careful about that as leaders. And if you're getting it, if people are constantly telling you that you're doing a great job, get them to put it in writing. Yeah, let's document this. Let's formalize this. Because what we find that ends up happening in the review process is, because we have to rate people, because we can't give everybody the same score, we can't give everybody the same raise, right? These policies that these HR organizations have set up for companies is that everybody can't win. We all can't get first place. What happens is they have to go back and find something that you have to continue to improve on. And oftentimes, these are things that you've corrected in the past. It hasn't happened for a long period of time. And you're blindsided when you get your actual written review that it's even in there, because you've been getting these good job gold stars that are verbal more so than written documentation. So that you don't end up like Whitney, I want you to do that. The other thing that I thought was also really interesting in this termination that Whitney recorded was that she asked the HR representatives, "Show me the receipts." She was like, "Where is this documented? Do you have the data to support what you're telling me?" And unfortunately, they did not. They had absolutely nothing that they could speak to that could validate what they were saying to her. They told her she was having a performance issue. They didn't have anything to say, "You haven't done this. These were your goals. You did not meet these goals. You failed to do this." They didn't have anything, to the point that she started to get emotional. And I actually felt a little emotion for her, because she was asking all the right questions. When I tell you, I have never heard anyone be so prepared for a termination as Whitney was. She was so prepared. She had all the right questions. She also had her tripod and her phone recording her, but the HR people were not prepared. And what I've also found interesting is that she wasn't the first person that they called. So they should have had some real data that they could have shared with her, because all that did was make her more upset and frustrated, that led to her becoming showing visible emotion, because she started to say, "What are you talking about? I have given my life to this, and here you are uprooting my life, destroying my day and my life, putting me in a situation that I did not expect." She had only been with the company for 3 months, I think about 3 to 4 months, and within that time period, she was off for both Thanksgiving and the December holidays. She didn't say how much time, but she made a point of pointing out that not only has she not been there a full 120 days, she was off for some time because their offices were closed for the holidays. So not having data that's shady. So I'm trying to be more professional, but it is really bad, right? So to Whitney's defense, that's the big deal. This is where this is coming from. I will say the one thing that I think the HR professionals did really well on that call, and they did not know that they were being recorded, was they showed us a significant amount of empathy and sympathy for her. And they verbally said, "Hey, we do understand how you feel. I wish I had more information. I will go back and get that and provide that to you." And Whitney was like, "What? Bringing it to me later doesn't matter because I'm gone, right? Evidently, this is my last day." And so I think the reason this thing went viral is because so many people have experienced being blindsided with poor performance evaluations and gradings, and also terminations that have been linked to performance when they don't have written feedback to support that. What is the impact of that? And I think if you are a people leader, or even if you are a staff, you should know that recording devices are in your workplace and people are using them. Now, you might be saying, I have to consent to being recorded. No, you don't actually. Anybody can record you. Now, is that recording, can it be used to hold you liable for what you said and what you are doing? The answer is yes, and it depends. So there are some states, if you say you were going to enter into a lawsuit, there are some states that require that both parties must consent to being recorded. But there are a lot of states, and you need to find out if you're in one, that doesn't require that both parties have to consent. So you may live in a state where only one party has to consent to that recording, and that recording can be used against you. And then also, also happened last week. Now, how do we combat that? I don't know. Do you tell people to come into your office and leave their phone at their desk? I don't think you can even do that. But I think what we have to do is be really aware of how we communicate with people. Be very aware that what we say does impact us, because that nursery rhyme, sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt us, is a big fat lie. That is not true, because what I know and what the data shows us is that when people are dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, belittling, cold, and dismissive tones, when those things, and just the word choices, if it's yelling, profanity, whatever it is, those things stay with us. And on average, we lose work time and capacity. It's not just loyalty or people leaving your organization, their productivity decreases when they're having to deal with this in the workplace. So we just want to be aware that there's both public exposure to your organization when this happens, and then the consequences for the individuals who are the perpetrators of this bad behavior, and also the consequences or the impact and the effect of the person that is, I hate to use the term victim, but who's on the receiving end of this bad behavior. Both, there's a loss for everyone involved in this. So it's going to affect your organizational brand, just like Cloudflare. Now they're terminating people for a variety of reasons. Maybe it is a blanket layoff because of the overall financial performance of the company. But as soon as they start hiring, this is going to come up. As soon as you Google, go ahead and do it now if you like. Google Cloudflare. This is going to come up, not their website. That's not going to be the first thing. It's going to be all the articles and all the conversations and everyone who made content about Whitney's termination from Cloudflare. So, what is the impact of this in your organizations? Do you see it, right? Are there legal and ethical considerations that we need to be aware of? And maybe there is, right? There's privacy and invasion. And that's why I think it's really important for you to understand what your state's policies are related to recording, right? You can record anybody in any state at any time for any reason. Now, can you use it as evidence is what's most important. So we are in an era where we have a workforce that believes in unions, they believe in lawsuits, and those numbers have increased, right? So I think we've always had that, right? People believe in, I can sue, I have employee rights. We need to understand that. But this is an opportunity for you to address your policies in your organizations around and adjusting your policies for whistleblowing, privacy, employee and employers' rights. There is something that to be said about being able to document this and having conversations within your organization and on your teams. And this is why it's so important to just not be a jerk at work, right? Treat people well, treat people kind, and be thoughtful about how you engage with them. And remember, everyone deserves to have their dignity left intact after they have an interaction with you. And I think there are things that you can do in organizations, even if you feel maybe a little intimidated by the rock star that you hired, right? You hired this amazing person. And hopefully you hired them because they're going to make you look good. They're going to do great work. But don't be jealous because they become a shining star, not only with your leadership, but with their peers. I think there's enough room in organizations for people to shine. Responsibility to prevent toxic behaviors. And HR policies and procedures need to be updated to talk about what sort of behavior is not permissible when leading teams, when working for this company. Because what we permit and what is permissible and what is rewarded by being able to stay in an organization and being promoted, that's what our culture is. So if we have someone in our organization and just because they can produce, they're bringing in a lot of work and clients, but they have high turnover, that people don't want to work for them. If you do exit interviews, you continue to hear the same complaints about them, then they're not doing your culture any favors. And you might need to let them go, put them on a performance improvement plan, get them a coach, do something so that you can resolve this issue because you think it's hard to find employees? Yes, it is. But it's hard to find employees because people would rather struggle in entrepreneurship than to work for you. They're not tied to the money anymore. People are looking for, they're not living to work, they're working to live. And so I think as leaders, we need to be aware of that. So, what can we do? What are some best practices for conducting layoffs? The first thing we want to do is let's prepare and plan so that we can minimize the impact it has both to our leadership, but also to the individual because layoffs are hard. They're often unexpected. They never come at the right time. So we want to be able to prepare. We need to be clear and compassionate and give details, provide people with the truth and the data around why they're being let go. And we should have a communication strategy for both the people who are being terminated and the people who are being retained. Create some sort of support system for laid off employees, including outplacement services, maybe coaching and counseling, so that they can stay in touch and they know that, hey, we're having a bad time right now. But what we want to do is support you as you find something else and somewhere else to work. Even if it is performance, I think it's important. Even if people say, hey, you're not the right fit here, you're not performing, you're not meeting your goals. But what we want to do is support you. It could be skills development, it could be coaching, counseling. We can help you with your resume. There are a lot of organizations that do that kind of work. I think also understand what the legal compliance is to protect everyone involved and understand, especially because people are being recorded. We and practice. I think it's important to practice what you're going to say because it's important that we use the right words, not only for ourselves, but to protect ourselves against lawsuits because it's not just your company that can be sued. You can be sued as an individual and an agent of that organization. Now, I am not an attorney and I do not practice law, but I want to tell you that because I know enough about employee law to tell you to know that.